We've been waiting all week for the Robert Kraft, Bill Belichick end of the season meeting. And ladies and gentlemen, it has finally happened. Tommy Curran breaking the news about the meeting on NBC Sports Boston.com. So let's get right to it as we bring in Tom and Phil Perry, our two guys who are always down and dirty in Foxborough. So, Tom, how did the meeting go?
Well, if you're a Patriots fan and you're somebody who would like to see Bill Belichick finish his illustrious career here with the Patriots, there was no tension to speak of. They were amenable, Bill was, to explaining here's what we saw in 2022, here's the directions we're looking to go, and the changes that he alluded to were basically what Robert Kraft had hoped to hear. So they move on into 2023. There will be no drama that evolves out of a meeting in which Robert Kraft didn't hear what he had hoped to hear, and there's no stalemate.
And I think that's what people want to hear, or they at least want to understand that part of that particular discussion. But it gets back to what I have heard when I've talked to people in the building since the season has ended, which is, look, the facts are the facts. The numbers are the numbers. As much as Bill Belichick likes Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, he likes everybody that's on his staff, he liked the setup going into this year, even he, in a production business, as the NFL is, would have to look at the facts, look at the numbers, see where they rank offensively relative to the rest of the NFL, relative to how they ranked last year, and say to himself, we need changes. So it doesn't shock me that he would say something similar to Robert Kraft.
All right, so if he is amenable to changes, what kind of changes are we going to see? I think everyone expects it to involve the offense, but are there other, say, special teams, Tom, that might have a change of personnel?
I think that we could theorize that might happen. I don't know that per se. I think that Bill Belichick's doing an audit of everything. Where did I go wrong? Where did I put people in positions where they weren't able to succeed? What am I responsible for? I think definitely he can look at the offensive side of the ball and make those declarations where guys weren't able or ready to live up to what he hoped. So there'll be reassignments. There will not be firings, to my estimation. I mean, again, this is what I'm logically putting together from the conversations I've had. There might be somebody who's elsewhere, but I don't think that people will be scapegoated. And as I put it in the story that I wrote, I don't think anybody's head is going to be on a spike. And that makes sense, doesn't it, Phil?
It does. And I think really organization-wide, people would look at every member of the staff, Matt Patricia, Joe Judge included, and those are the guys that have drawn a lot of our focus over the entirety of the season, and say, these guys work really hard. I like these guys. It's just the season went the way it did. The offense didn't have the answers that it did necessarily, game to game, play to play, month to month, that it needed to execute at the level that it wanted to execute. And so I think there are people within the building that are eagerly anticipating, okay, will there be a change? Who is it? When does it happen?
Here's the thing, too, with Patricia and Judge. Both of these guys came back after having been fired elsewhere, worked here for short money. They were on the payroll still and being paid by their former teams. But Bill doesn't want to leave them with the stain of having failed here. He doesn't want them scapegoated. He doesn't want to fire them. He put them in those positions. So I think it would be a thankless, and certainly Bill, I don't think, who stresses loyalty, would ever want to be in a position where he's like, okay, you know what? I'm publicly castigating Matt Patricia for not having a great year. I think he will be very careful, and that's important to remember as well as this offseason goes along. It's January 11th. We might never hear anything up to minicamp before we have an idea who's doing what.
And that's understandable, right? Like, to your point, he put Matt Patricia and Joe Judge in those positions. I mean, who knows if they even said to him, ooh, I don't even know that this is the right place for me to be. But it's also obvious, if it was very easy for him to say to Robert Kraft, hey, we need to make some changes, obviously I know what they are, that he'd be, I don't know, maybe a little farther along in the process. Like, where are they in the process of bringing in new people to change things in Foxborough?
As of earlier today, not very far along. And the reason for that is...
And that's frustrating.
It is because, and this is a phenomenon that exists with Bill Belichick wearing so many hats. He doesn't have a GM per se who is away from scouting. I think Matt Groh has been established as a scouting guy, but you know, Bill does everything himself, and he's very cloistered. So when you're the head coach and you're preparing for the Buffalo Bills with a playoff appearance on the line, you are full and all in on that. And you have a coaching staff around you that you're not going to be backdooring and talking to potential candidates to replace him because, hell, maybe you win against Buffalo, Phil. Maybe you go on a streak after that. You're not even of a mind to think who you're going to replace him with. So they're kind of still just starting the car up and putting it into gear.
You're just looking up after having your nose to the grindstone since the beginning of August in training camp. And that I think is probably frustrating to fans, but that's just how they do it in Foxborough.